Maxx Nitro is a brand new hero from the Bright Lights set, and he gives players a new way to tackle Mechanologist deck building. And after spending the past week tinkering around with his deck lists, I've tried something a little bit different, a little bit new, something you may not have seen before. This is a Galvanize Control Nitro Mechanoid dash list. And just in case you're wondering whether or not I'm doing my best Maxx Nitro cosplay, no, I am just wearing my brand new earbuds from Status Audio. More about them later in the video. So starting from the beginning, Maxx Nitro is a 4 intellect, 40 health Mechanologist hero that says once per turn action you can pay 2, and you create a Hyperdriver token with 2 Steam counters. And you can only activate this hero effect if you have boosted on the turn. And also, Hyperdrivers you control get crank, meaning that if you play a Hyperdriver or create one, you can crank it, taking a Steam counter off it and gaining the action point back. So what this essentially means is that we can start our turn by boosting an attack, I don't know, maybe paying 1, pitching a blue from our hand, floating 2 resources. If we do that, we are then available and able to use Maxx Nitro's effect to create a Hyperdriver token. We could crank it, or we could just sit on it after presenting some amount of damage prior. Maxx Nitro's effect allows us to be very open and flexible with our deck building. And you know what else is flexible? These earbuds from Status Audio. I'm not kidding. These have become my absolute favorite thing I carry around in the carrying case. Just listen to me. These are the best thing I have ever put in my ears. And that is a weird way of saying that, but just trust me, I was blown away by the audio fidelity that these things put out is nothing short of incredible. Speaking of incredible is Construct Nitro Mechanoid. You could also pronounce it Construct. It's really up to you. Nevertheless, but it is a construct, as you can see right there. Constructs resolve flipped into the arena, but this construct costs 4. It blocks for 3 as well, and you get go again when you play this. But in order to play this card, and this is the linchpin of the deck, you must have a Mechanologist head, chest, arms, legs, weapon, and 3 Hyperdrivers in the arena. When you do, and you pay 4 for this, you get a Nitro Mechanoid that can attack by just banishing a card from under it. And in doing so, you attack for 5, which is quite good. Also, this has Overpower, meaning that it can't be blocked by more than 1 action card from an opponent's hand. If we do this after we've boosted and create this and take the Cogworks extra action point off of the legs before we transform, on the turn you transform, you can attack with this twice, because again, you don't have to pay resources into this. You just need the action points. Keep in mind, this is also so good because when we transform into this, this becomes a 5-block temper piece of equipment. So it blocks for 5, and then for 4, and then for 3, and then for 2, and then for 1, and then it explodes after you block for 1. So this is sort of a jack of all trades. It can attack for massive damage, and it can defend us against really scary on hits or just weird breakpoints as well. So the goal is to become the Nitro Mechanoid. You can do this in a variety of ways. In fact, I built a bunch of lists that were aggressive, but I decided to settle on a more defensive list and give that to you because I thought it was a little bit more original and perhaps uncharted waters. And speaking of what we're playing, I tell you what, these headphones, whatever you play into them, sound incredible. They've taken an engineered, professional grade quality audio devices and they've put it into this device right here, and it even comes with a little button on the top that allows you, when you press it, makes a little sound as it played for me in my ear, and now I can hear everything around me. It's noise canceling in one way, and then it can be completely not noise canceling so you can carry on a conversation while something goes on in your ears. This has become a game changer for me in my life, and they are so good that I am actually buying my wife a set of the noise canceling earbuds for Christmas. So maybe you can consider that as well for yourself. Thank you so much for sponsoring the video, Status Audio, and thank you even more for this incredible product that you've put out on the market. But let's talk about equipment and weapons. We have Cogworks base legs. These legs essentially allow you to, at instant speed, remove a Steam counter and gain an action point. This is a great thing to do when you are trying to establish a hyperdriver without cranking, or on a turn where you possibly are transforming into the Nitro Mechanoid, which we'll talk about here in a moment, because it gives you the extra action point to swing with the Mechanoid. Speaking of Mechanoid, Galvanic Bender is an absolute must because it has Battle Worn 1, it blocks, and it gives +1 attack to your Nitro Mechanoid. Hyper X3 is a Battle Worn 1 Mechanologist headpiece that fits perfectly. Also, sometimes we can get the effect to trigger, but it's very rare. This is more just a 1 block that meets the requirement for Nitro Mechanoid. Teklo Foundry Heart is a huge get for this deck. This is a very important, very powerful card because it blocks for 3 total, and it allows us to generate resources, or really an extra resource, as long as we have 1 at any given point, because our deck is full of Mechanologist cards. And finally, we are running the Teklo Plasma Pistol. We're not running the Banksy Wrench, really. We have it in the sideboard, but we're not really running it. Instead, we're playing the pistol, and we're not even playing the pistol package. We're just playing the pistol. So as far as the list is concerned, this is how it breaks down. Let's talk about all of the attacks and why we put them in the deck. So essentially, we are trying to play a control list. We want to give damage to our opponent, but we want to play as efficiently as possible with our own cards. And we also want to play around this axis of pitching. Here we go. Where is it? Where is it? This is why I don't like the subtypes tab. I'm just going to switch back to types. This is unfortunate why there we go. We're just going to change it back. I wish the subtypes tab had an actual, just break it in. I don't need this arms. I don't need this 2H2. I don't need that. We'll just go back to normal. Okay, we want to base everything off of this sort of 3 blue card, 1 card in hand, 3 resource axis. And the way this functions is like this. If we play a 1 cost boost card, then we have 2 resources floating if we pitch a blue. So we can play Dive Through Data, boost, and pitch a blue to float 2, in which case we can end our turn by creating a hyperdriver, which means the other 2 cards in our hand can be used to block effectively on our opponent's turn. Value block, if you will. We could also choose to Arsenal and then play a 1 card hand, the same sort of thing. But we can also do this off of a blue and a 2 cost attack, because we can pitch a blue to pay for Twin Drive, for example, boosting once, floating 1 resource. At which point we can then activate Teklo Foundry Heart to go from 1 resource, banish 2 cards off the top of our deck, get 2 resources. And then Maxx the Hype Nitro effect allows us to follow up and create a hyperdriver, thus keeping a hyperdriver around sort of ad infinitum, if you will. And that can be good for creating the Nitro Mechanoid alongside of our hyperdrivers in our deck. Okay, we can do that, certainly. We were running 6 hyperdrivers in the deck, and so creating some of these hyperdrivers and then not attacking and boosting sometimes, on off turns, means that we will get 3 hyperdrivers and most likely line this up with the Nitro Mechanoid. We can also, however, use our hyperdrivers that we're creating to protect us a little bit better with cards like Infuse Alloy. Infuse Alloy has Galvanize, a keyword that says when this defends, you can destroy an item you control, and if you do, this gets +2 defense. So this card can be a 0 for 4 on our own turn. Not boost, just a 0 for 4, so we can play a 1 card hand, a 1 card 4. Or it can be a 0 for 4 block. We just have to give up the item that we've been kind of creating each turn, which can be a big ask, but at other times it can be just fine. So in other words, this card can act as a bad Sink Below, or it can act as a bad Snatch that doesn't draw you a card. Any 0 for 4, like a Scar for a Scar that doesn't have Go Again. This is essentially what this card can act as. So it's not great. I'm not trying to sell you on this is the second coming of Fatigue Briar, but what I am saying is that this is intriguing, and so go with me on it. That's all I'm saying. The other thing we're playing to kind of combo along with this is Infused Titanium, because it is a 7 attack. This also costs 3, so we can pitch a single blue. So we're playing again on a 2 card 7 or a 0 card or 1 card 4, but a 2 card 7 damage attack that also can be used defensively if we have the moment that we need to use it. So this is 6 copies of this that can either attack 7 or attack 6 with the yellow. 6 different copies that allow us to play out this sort of game plan predicated around a blue. So that is the point of the deck, and this is really the explanation as to why all of the cards are in the deck. We have a 1-cost boost that allows us to play that same blue line that gets us a hyperdriver. We have a 0-cost that pushes damage, but also can be defensive. This is considered a 1-cost red that can play on that same axis, but it functions in both ways. If you have a hyperdriver, Jumpstart is essentially a different version of Zipper Hit, but it also lets us kind of like just float a blue out there. If you don't have a hyperdriver, then this lets us float 1 resource and do the Teklo Foundry Heart trick to get 2 resources and create a hyperdriver, which is great. Throttle functions as a 2-cost. It's like the best 6 attack that you can have. It's also a popper. Twin Drive, same thing. It deals 5 damage, but it can also function on that blue axis. 0 to 60 is different because it doesn't cost us anything. So it's literally a 0-cost 4 attack boostable card, which is fantastic on kind of swing turns and for just gaining tempo. Great card in general. And then we run the blues as well because it's a 0 for 2. It's a fantastic blue. It blocks for 3. It's like the perfect blue. Yellow Zipper Hits are great because they are just 1-cost for 4, and it's fantastic little attack. Then we run some Expedites, which is a little poke for 1, but can take the hyperdrivers from our hand because we are running yellow and red hyperdrivers. Can take that from our hand and drop it onto the field. We do run blue T-Bones just because it's a blue. Technically, you could use it for this effect. There's just not enough space for the other big kind of like 0-cost boosters in this current setup. And then I chose blue Underloop as well, which is a fine little kind of possible recursion on hit tool, if you will. As far as other cards in this sort of main list, we have Firewall, which is a 0 for 4, fantastic card, and High Octane. And that brings us to the combo of the deck and why I kind of like this idea and just overall Mechanoid combo. If we go High Octane, and then we follow it up with things like 0 to 60, boosting, or Zipper Hits, boosting, or really any of our boost cards, then all of a sudden High Octane nets us action points. Why does that matter? Well, if we have the Nitro Mechanoid out, there we go. If we have Nitro Mechanoid out and we gain action points, all we need to do is spend those action points to attack with it. So we can gain 3 action points, 4 action points on any given turn, and then send Nitro Mechanoid 4 times for 24 damage on its own, which is absolutely incredible. So all we have to do that is to have High Octane in play, paying for it, drawing a card, basically replacing itself, floating some resources. A couple of boost attacks, hopefully a hyperdriver maybe still on the field after you've created the Mechanoid, or maybe you just like line it up to where you use the resources, gain the resources off hyperdriver, then create Nitro Mechanoid. And then after boosting, gaining action points, we can send Mechanoid 4 times, 3 times, who knows? A bunch of times, as many times as we can possibly do for a big sort of wombo combo. And that's the point of the deck. The point of the deck is to play defensively until we can set that up and then try to hit our opponent for massive damage. As far as the overall sideboard is concerned, we have things like Ratchet Up, which is a 1 for 5. Doesn't necessarily play into this like game plan of floating 2 resources because we can't do this at instant speed. We have to use it at action speed, and this does not have Go Again, but it still has Galvanize, and it's a nice on-rate card that you could play off of a red, so I included it. Rev Up is another popper that's also a 2 for 6 because we're almost always going to have a hyperdriver. This is almost like just a slam dunk in the deck. Soup Up is super good. I think Soup Up's actually just main board in the deck, but I haven't messed around with it enough to really say that yet. But it's super good because if you destroy a hyperdriver, like on your turn, this gains Go Again. Even if you don't, it's a 0 for 4, kind of like the previous one, and it blocks for 4. This almost might just straight up need to replace Infuse Alloy and just kind of swap places. And then finally, Torque Tuned is also one of those little head scratcher kind of cool cards. It's a 2 for 6. And if you pop a hyperdriver on your turn, like if it's destroyed, well, then all of a sudden this gets overpowered. So it's like a pseudo dominate in that respect. And it's a popper as well. So That is the list. As far as other things in the sideboard, you've got AB, you've got AB, and you've got Banksy, because I just can't let go. It's too cool to let go of. If you enjoy this type of weird off-meta deck, let me know that in a comment below. Let me know which hero you want me to do that for next, and I will put that together just for you. And if you're a patron and you want a copy of this deck list with some very rudimentary sideboards put together in the matchups tab, head on over to patreon.com and check it out on the post there. If you're not a member of the Patreon, hop onto Patreon, consider supporting this channel. I'll build more deck lists like this, and then I'll just give them to you so that you can keep them or try them out for yourself, and you have perfect, easy access on the Patreon. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.